Thank you for tuning into the Buyer's Guide podcast, where we talk all things property and finance. My name is Peter Mastriani, the founder of the Buyer's Guide, which has essentially been established to really help as many people as possible buy their first home right through to building their own property portfolio in order to secure their financial future. Today's cast is all about buying property off the plan, the pros, the cons, and the essential considerations that you need to make prior to signing off on that contract. So, let's get to it. Buying off the plan is certainly a popular consideration for first home buyers right through to sophisticated investors. When new developments come to the market, they can definitely be promoted at a lower price. And that's done intentionally, I guess, in order to draw the punters in, but mainly because it secures the project's future, meaning that a developer is quite likely to complete the project because they've actually secured upfront dollars to make it possible. Now, getting involved at this early stage could really be advantageous because of good pricing. There's certainly some equity advantages as well because you can lock in the property without having to settle for an extended period, meaning that capital growth in that time could certainly make your deposit quite valuable. But remember, prices don't always go up, so choose wisely. Also, developers can also build in contract contingencies to renege, I guess, if substantial amount of growth has taken place. There's been a number of cases more recently highlighted in the media of developers utilizing the sunset clause in order to pull contracts and on-sell those properties to new individuals. Time is certainly another advantage in that a longer settlement will take effect, allowing you to take stock of what's happening within your own life and work towards, building additional funds to secure your future home. Another advantage, and this probably more so relates to first home buyers, is that the government could chip in as well. There could be stamp duty concessions on the new builds and additional money in the pot from the first home buyers grant. Now, getting in early certainly will allow you to cherry pick from the development's best options. Obviously, there's some great benefits to be had buying off the plan, but it's pretty complex stuff. So, do the following checks as considerations as an absolute minimum. Firstly, I would suggest that it's really important that you actually work with a reputable developer. Check out their past work, vet them through feedback channels, do licenses checks. Check out, if they've had any disciplinary actions in the past. If your research turns up anything concerning, maybe you should actually reconsider. Also, gain an understanding of their financial situation because if a developer goes bust, it could mean an unfinished project and your deposit basically tied up in an abyss for a long period of time. Insurance is definitely something to consider and to get. Insurance warranty is required from the developer before entering into the contract sale, which will cover for any potential changes and breaches. Subsequently, you'll require that the property to be insured prior to the builder, I should say, handing over the keys. Now, getting finance in this scenario can sometimes be a little bit tougher. Lenders may cap the LVR rate and will likely require final approval on the project completion. So choose wisely, visualize the look and the feel, check the paperwork, and always seek professional advice. I would also suggest that, what you visualize and what eventuates could actually be quite different. So perhaps think of it like your favorite book being made into a movie. It might have all the bits and bobs, but it just wasn't quite right. Also, consider whether or not the numbers actually stack up, how likely the developer or the builder is to deliver against their promises, and whether contractually it's fair or in your favor. Now, developers will promise you that you're buying tomorrow's real estate at today's prices, and that could well be the case. It's just as possible for the alternate and for it not to be the case. So, to truly nail buying off the plan, the key understanding is to really make sure the contract is crystal clear within your own mind. So, before signing anywhere, as a necessity, have the contract reviewed by a lawyer to determine the financial details and the commitments that are going to be required from you, and also the commitments of the developer, particularly if the project was to run over time. You should also have a look at the display house or the display units, and even give some consideration to having an architect review the property plans to give you an accurate assessment of what it is that you're actually going to be buying. Make sure everything is detailed in the contract, right down to the appliances, the fittings, and the fixture types. Be sure to dispute this if there's any discrepancies on what you receive and what has been contractually committed to. Also, get an understanding of what binding strata title contracts are in place. Again, have these reviewed by a lawyer to ensure that fair terms have been agreed. Now, new developments in demand areas will often be heavily marketed to attract a premium. Now, this marketing is only going to be added into the cost of the property purchase. So, question marketing that involves rental guarantees because it could be a signal that a developer feels that there could be an oversupply, hence pushing down the value. Costs are built into the price, so evaluate any contractual aspects that could draw you into additional expense requirements. Some other factors to consider prior to signing on the bottom line is location. Location. It's the age old saying, but have a fundamental understanding of what it could be like to live in that area. What noise is there? Is it a new suburb? Does it have the necessary infrastructure in place? If it's in close proximity to major urban areas, um, what noise is perhaps coming from the road? Where's the bus or the train? What's it going to be like living in a complex with 200 other residents? There's certainly things that you really need to give consideration to. Use your imagination as well wherever possible. Imagine the living spaces and the outlook that you could potentially have. How much space you'll actually have as well, where storage will be for your unit. Buying an 80 square meter apartment off the plan with 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a separate lounge, kitchen is likely to be, a pretty small space. So try and visualize, or even better still, find something comparable and existing, just to give you a better idea of what it is that you could possibly be living in or investing in. Also, you need to ascertain from the developer whether or not it can be customized exactly to your liking. Another factor is that you have to do the background checks on the developer to ensure the necessary local council approvals are already in place. And I think it's also important to have a contingency plan. Finances will also need to be planned accordingly. Valuations will be required by the bank upon the completion of the build as well. If the valuation is lower than the contractual price that you've agreed to, then you may need a backup plan to cover this discrepancy from the loan to value ratio perspective. You also need to give some consideration on where you're actually planning while this complex is getting built. What if the property isn't completed on time? What would you then do? Could you afford to continue to put money into rent while the project is being completed? Stamp duty and other concessions may also be available by your state, so make sure you complete the necessary checks and get every cent that you're entitled to. The best resource is your local state revenue office. Um, look, I think the most important thing to do when you're potentially looking at entering into a contract for an off the plan property is really to question everything. Make sure you understand what you're entering into and have that contract reviewed by a solicitor or a conveyancing professional so you have a fundamental understanding of what you're actually agreeing to. So, house and land packages are another product that's available in the market that could somewhat be like pulling a property off the production line. It could come with a long list of options, including colors, doorknobs, land choices, and so much more. The list is really endless. Once again, buying off the plan could be a great option because of the time parameters: time to save, time for capital growth, time to get grants approved, and just generally time to get your house in order. Now, depending on the location, you can get some great bang for your buck in new housing developments. You can get a decent block size. It's going to be a completely new dwelling. It could well be designed to, your specific likes and tastes. And again, there's going to be incentives and concessions for first home buyers with the first home buyer grant and potential stamp duty concessions as well. Perhaps you could even go green and save thousands on utility costs over the long term. There's certainly a lot going for house and land packages. Long term capital growth could well be quite likely, because others will continue to come into the area, and this will certainly increase infrastructure and additional services. Now, developers will vary in the tune of the popularity, and they're pretty quick to snap up new land releases for planned communities. Generally, a developer will build the houses and then on-sell them, or provide a choice of lots, and have a number of customized housing packages that can then be tailored to your liking. Now, financing in this arrangement is usually a little different, as you'll have a loan for the land and a separate construction loan. Now, the construction loan is drawn down for progress payments to be met for the builder. So, upon completion, the loan will then be brought together. The benefit of this is that you're really only going to be paying the interest on the sums down, not the entire amount straight away. Now, contracts can be fixed in agreement, which is also beneficial in maintaining the risk of a budget blowout as well. The trick is really to determine what is actually included in this fixed price contract. Different builders will have different inclusions. They all make their money in different ways. So you really need to understand what you're getting for your money. Fencing, appliances, painting, gardening, are any of those included in your contract? Similarity to buying off the plan, the contract is king. In the contract, you also want to ensure that there's going to be guarantees on the structural aspects, and warranties for, the goods that are included inside the premises. Therefore, I have to stress the importance of doing your due diligence, doing your research, visiting their past work, taking references, and whatever else you feel is needed to really make an informed decision. Body corporates can also apply in situations of this manner. And body corporates don't have to be restricted to your normal apartment block complexes. Now, new housing developments may also have incorporated a body corporate levy. This could be to maintain the common areas in the estate, and the facilities that are also provided. Green estates, perhaps, that are now about, could also generate power and or have their own wastewater treatment facilities, and again could impose a levy for the maintenance of the upkeep of the necessary equipment. Again, great concepts, but look, when problems arise, they could certainly be costly. So have an understanding of what your obligation is within those factors. So look, this is a phrase that has stuck with me for quite a while. So to finish on it, it's: if you're drawn for it, go for it. If you're not, just keep walking. So to apply that into the circumstances when buying off the plan or looking at a house and land package, if you're drawn to it, look, go for it. But get good advice, do the necessary checks, and if it doesn't stack up, just keep walking. So good luck, and be sure to tune in for the next episode of the Buyer's Guide podcast. Looking forward to helping you along your housing journey. All the best. Bye bye.